Well, yeah, because they're not like part of the community.
Yeah.
Do any of you guys want a cheese quesadilla? Not to interrupt something that was like that was
no, that's okay.
It's just that I just had a cheese quesadilla. Yeah, and I was like, oh, I don't know which one.
No, the census really is though, because you think about like, you know, why is census important? Well, because we need to like get an accurate count in order to be able to like pass effective policy, to like allocate funding, but you know, people don't trust the census, or they don't know how to answer questions, you know, and with good reason, because the government hasn't always been great about following up or treating people well when they have answered accurately.
The good thing about our focus group today was that a lot of people, like, it started conversations like this. It wasn't for the focus group. I felt like the focus group was just sitting there. But the fact that we actually got to talk about it and that we heard from each other, I thought that was like the good thing about what the conversation was. So actually, like when I was there, I actually heard some things that were like applicable to some of the stuff tonight. So I was like, oh, yay, cool, you know? Like what you said right there, like there's like a stat that says there's like 16% of the population in Los Angeles is API. And then like out of that, like only like 10% are in Medi-Cal system or something, and then like 5% are getting services. So the disparity between the population, people who access services and people who actually get services is like huge. We just don't get services.
Yeah, and I would say the API population in LA, like are you talking about LA City or LA County?
I think it's county, yeah.
Way more than 16%.
Way more.
Yeah, those are such like wild underestimates. I mean, think about like our elders who like don't trust the system and will not like participate. Like if you call them and you speak English and they don't speak English, they're just gonna hang up. It's like no, they're not gonna participate.
We got some people tuning in. One of them, Lil Ransom, shout out to you on Instagram or on Facebook Live. They said eggs again, LOL. That's perfect. We actually haven't started any questions yet. We were just pretty much talking about like what we were doing today or what we're up to today. Because we wanted to wait for all of you guys to tune in. So today's topic, we're actually just going to be talking, well, we're going to break it up, right? So we're going to break it up into 2 different parts. We're actually going to have a 30-minute session. And we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to have another 30-minute session. And the way that we're going to break it up, in the first session, we're going to go ahead and talk about I guess tonight's topic would be navigating a relationship with our parents and our loved ones from other generations and learning how to communicate with them. So that's very important. I feel like that's something that's hardcore relatable.
That's tough.
That is really tough. Yeah, so we're gonna open up with questions of that, and then in the second half we're gonna have general questions, and you guys are more than welcome to join us and ask us questions as we are live streaming. So we'll be sure to definitely answer those.
See a live stream.
You're on the live stream.
You are on it. You're in it.
I know. You're in the world.
I'm still like learning how to. I swear, I'm so bad at this.
Well, okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up and introduce myself. I'm Julia. Hi. I'm a video producer, and I'll be your host for today. And then please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Leo. I am a peer advocate. I am also a past addict, and also I suffer from a mental illness. I'm also a professional in the field, and public speaker, and a co-chair of a DMH subcommittee called API UsCC. It's for culturally appropriate services for Asian Pacific Islanders in Los Angeles County.
All right, and my name is Nolan Ross, and I'm an LGBTQ advocate, community organizer, as well as a certified alcohol and drug counselor.
Wow.
I'm also, right? I too am also an alcoholic and an addict.
Hi, I'm Marielle. I'm a mental health professional. Previous life have been a practicing physician and also a teacher. Thank you for having me again. I don't know what else to say. I feel like it's
fancy. No. I was a doctor once.
I was a doctor once.
I was a doctor.
Still a doctor. It's like still there.
I used to be a doctor. Now I'm an actress.
I'm not.
I'm a movie star. I'm just saying.
The first question that we have today that comes from you guys, that when we asked earlier what kind of questions you guys have in terms of communicating with your parents and your loved ones. First one is, how can I help my parents understand that I'm trying my best but don't feel motivated to continue?
That's interesting in what context that is. Is it like in academically, or is it?
Let's say we'll go with academic first, and then maybe we can dive into something more personal. Yeah. So in an academic sense, because like this is something that I can kind of relate to a little bit, because I know my parents' background, and they all moved to America just for a better future, right? And the fact that I chose a major that wasn't quite high on their list, because I ended up being in an art major. That's probably one of the subjects that they would like me to do the least.
What's AR?
AR?
Art.
Oh.
I said.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I felt guilty because I felt like they provided me with anything, like the best that they could, right? The best education, the tutorings, there's like extra classes outside of school that I took in order for me to have a better future here in America. And the fact that I went into art, which is again a subject that they didn't necessarily was very fond of, I had a lot of guilt about that, and I tried my best to kind of make up for it in a way. So, but there were times where I just felt like I wasn't motivated to do anything anymore, because I was like, well, I don't want to become a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. Like, yeah. So like there are parts where I did feel like it was discouraging. So I mean, what would you say to someone that was kind of struggling with, well, I am trying to do my best to please you, but at the same time, I feel like my own happiness is being jeopardized.
Yeah, I'll take this point.
I think that's a question that's an issue and a concern that's very prevalent, and it really has to do a lot with not just age gaps, but also generationally. I think, you know, what we find is that typically, you know, a lot of people whose parents have immigrated here, they especially like from the API community, they want you to choose like a very reliable major that will reliably get you a job, and with, you know, good reason, because again, they come here with the hopes that they will find a better life for you, and you will make a better life for yourself. So okay, we understand that, and I get that. Like, I'm an immigrant myself, you know, and so I get that mentality a lot. It's hard to get parents to understand. I mean, even I think, you know, I remember I was at a conference, and I overheard like two Asian men talking about like majors, and somebody was saying like, oh yeah, they majored in political science. That's not really gonna get you like a solid job.
I majored in political science. Boo! I hate those guys.
But I think, you know, and I think we have to remember in context, like why do, you know, a lot of API immigrants direct their children to, you know, to go into majors like pre-med, engineering, you know, accounting, you know, nursing, etc., because again, it's like reliable, you know, they come here wanting to know that you will succeed, and that puts a lot of pressure on their children. And how do you get them, you know? So I'm in my 30s now, and like, you know, it's hard for me to say like, oh, I like didn't fit the mold because I actually did go to medical school. And so, you know, like I am one of those people, but I get it, it's hard. I think what parents want to know, if you remember what I said about they want to know that you will have security, is they want to know that you have a plan. And I think that's understandably really hard to do when you're in college. It's a lot of pressure, right? Like even when you're in high school and they ask you to pick a major, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm 17.
I had so much like just like mental breakdown because of that.
Right.
Because I was like, I need to know how the rest of my life goes when I'm like 19 years old and I have no friends. Like, I was like, let's just smoke more weed and just maybe this will work out.
Well, you know, like I remember, so I went to UCI for undergrad, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna go undecided. And I was like, no, you're not. You're gonna major in biology. And I was like, no, I'm not. She's like, okay, well, good luck paying for everything. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll major in biology. And so, and that was like a real thing for me. In fact, I didn't even want to go to a four-year university. I didn't know what I wanted to study. I wanted to go to community college and then transfer. But my mom was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Okay, well, I want to apply to this school. No, you're not.
Yeah,
you know?
There's so many programs for like community colleges now. That's so good. Like there's like guaranteed like transfers to like USC and stuff from LACC. It's like, what the fuck? Like I can save so much money.
Yeah, but I mean, I get that pressure, and I think, you know, it's a pressure that's gonna keep following you, unfortunately, until your parents are sure that you are secure. What does that look like? I don't know, and unfortunately, it's something that it's an ongoing conversation that happens. I see it with my younger siblings because my siblings are 6 and 10 years younger than me. And my parents, same thing, like counting them. What are you gonna major in? When are you gonna graduate? What are you gonna study? And it's a lot of pressure, and I see them still doing it. I think over the years they have learned to lay off because I think they've realized that, you know, my siblings just don't respond to that. But not everybody has it that way, and so, you know, how to tell your parents, like, this is a life that I'm choosing and I will be successful. It's hard. And I think
in some ways they want the best for you.
I would
but
say
it's like it's a horrible way to go about it.
They want the best for you, but they don't. I think what's very hard is that American culture is very individualistic, and a lot of API culture is very collective. Right? Where they say, well, if you get this major, if you study this major and you get a good job, then you can help the family. You help the family, you help the community. It's very much like that, where it's like, well, if you choose the major that you want to do, that you want the career that you want, where you make your money and you don't worry about like people like us, you know, it's that guilt trip, and I get that. And it's like a huge culture divide, because you've got these American ideals that tell you, you can do whatever you want, work hard, like follow your dream, you know, you can achieve. Whereas like a lot of API cultures are like, you know, you do it for the family. And how do you address that? I mean,
I feel like the way that I address it is like, I think the reason why this tradition of them wanting for us to follow this really stringent path is because they followed the same path that their parents told them to also. And not just that, but that they immigrated here and they feel like they need to put up a shield so that they can protect themselves against the world this way. So if my son or daughter is like a lawyer or a doctor, there's nothing that anyone can say to me, because, you know, even though I'm Asian and people look down on me, my son or daughter is a doctor, so you got nothing against me, you know? So I feel like to combat that in some sort of way is to like make sure your parents are aware of the world outside them, not just your family, not just the API community, but maybe like a larger community, so that they can understand American culture better. Because like my family, like my sister has like, an Emmy, right? So she won an Emmy, and then she's like telling my mom, oh, I want an Emmy, Mom. And my mom's like, the hell is that? I don't know what that is. You know, like I don't know what that is. You know, like I don't care what that is. You're not a doctor, you know? But we slowly are like educating her, like this is what we do. This is like how we do things, and then she kind of understands it more through like us interpreting the world for her, and then maybe her like interpreting the world too. And since there's like social media now, and then there's the internet, like parents are using their phones and they're seeing more of the world. I feel like it's a little bit different than maybe when we were kids, because I'm 32. Like my mom didn't have like, she doesn't even know how to use a computer, you know? So back in the day, she would just only know like her own world and like these like little books from like old school China or something like that, you know? So maybe now there's like a different opportunity for like younger kids to have a different conversation. I'm not saying that they have to, or the stress is on them and they can do it, but maybe there's a chance, I don't know.
I mean,
but it might be even tougher too, because there's...
I mean, there's like, I think something that, you know, comes up over and over again is, you know, the emotional labor of education, of educating like your family and friends about mental health, about like issues that affect people who are very vulnerable. You know, there's a lot of emotional and mental and spiritual toll that it takes on you to like go out and like talk to even your parents. Like, you know, when you say this, it belittles me and it is hurtful and it makes me depressed. It gives me anxiety. I cannot like do well.
It's hard to say that.
It's really hard, especially because I think, you know, especially because parents, especially a lot of API parents, are not very forthcoming verbally. You know, like we just don't talk about things culturally. And I think in a lot of ways, you know, you're kind of forced to assume and kind of pick up from context what the situation is. You know, whereas other cultures, like a lot of American, you know, Western culture is like, you want something, you say it. You know, whereas in a lot of API cultures, like you don't often just like say that. You know, it's considered impolite, it's considered rude, it's considered in some context shameful. You know, and so we're now, you know, struggling like with the generational gap, culture gap, age gap, language gap, absolutely. And so there's a lot of things at play. So I guess what we're trying to say is there's not one solution, and part of it is you have to know what your parents are like, and part of it is, yes, if you want them to understand this, you're gonna have to undergo this emotional labor of educating them, and whether or not that'll turn into something that works for everyone, there's no way to know.
That is very true.
I also have a thing, play devil's advocate. Sometimes you just gotta go, fuck it, and just leave, you know, or just tear it apart. They're your family. We have really strong Asian bonds. So they're still gonna, like, I think they're still gonna hound after you in some sort of way. They're still gonna be there, but you just have to say, let's just sever this sometimes. Maybe they're not even there, you could just sever it. Sometimes you just have to. Because if it's so toxic, sometimes you just gotta.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I think self-preservation is always the key. Although a lot of people, especially young people, don't have a way out. You know, maybe they're being supported by their parents and they don't know if they have a way to actually survive. And that's tough. You know, that's really tough. And there are services out there. It's harder when you're, you know, a minor to kind of get certain services, because sometimes you need parental consent and that makes it extra difficult. But, you know, if you're really struggling, I would say, you know, speak to an adult who, if you're a young person, speak to an adult who you trust.
Yeah, I think that's important.
And I think it's also important, you know, like lending to Leo's comment is, even though you have blood family, like you can also have friends and community members who are family. And it's important to not forget about them, because they're there for you. That's what they're there for. You know, and you are allowed to turn to them, and you should. And I think a lot of people don't want to feel like they're a burden to other people, especially, you know, a lot of us in the API community, we don't want to reach out because we feel like, oh, if we do, then we're going to burden other people, and we don't want to do that because we're raised in such a way, it's like, don't burden other people. You know, like, don't shame yourself, don't shame your family, don't burden other people. And that's something that's hard to overcome. But you know what, like, you need to take care of yourself, and it doesn't hurt to just see who's out there, especially if you trust them.
So then, like, with that being said, then how do you keep your family's opinions from actually creating doubt and affecting like the relationships that you have? You know, because like if they are the ones that you value the most, right, and they talk down and be like, yeah, you'll never make it out if you don't do this, this, and this, or it's just like you're a terrible kid, what makes you think that other people want to be friends with you? Like, how can you negate all those thoughts and just think differently from them, from how they're seeing you? Like, what can you do?
Well, I mean, like, I would say that stems from codependency, and that stuff is taught to you at a very young age. You know what I mean? So like, when, you know, in the Filipino culture, from my own personal experience, you know, like, if you're not a nurse or if you're not a doctor, you're pretty much a failure. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, like, you're kind of like brought up to think that if I don't do this, you're not really gonna be like.
Has anybody seen the Joe Coy, like, in Seattle on Netflix? Like, he talks about everybody's a nurse, and it's true. I have a lot of aunts and some cousins who are all nurses.
Or doctors.
Because it's stable, it's reliable. It's reliable. That's what it comes.
And that's how a lot of them came here and were able to build a life here. You know what I mean? So they know, it's a proven fact that many people who have immigrated to America, if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor or a lawyer or any of those you know, those jobs, your occupations, you're gonna succeed, or you're gonna be deemed successful. So anything outside of that scope is, you know what I mean, you know, like, it's it's difficult to see in your own self to be like, okay, I know that if I went towards the arts, that I'm going to be successful,
right.
or that my parents are going to accept me, or they're going to love me for me, you know, because there's this thing, it's like you are what you do, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, you know, if I'm you know, am I going to be successful, like, you know, being in the arts, or being in, you know, in drama, or anything, you know,
social field,
whatever it is, you know what I mean? So getting that acceptance is you may never get that acceptance.
Oh.
You know what I mean? You may never be able. They may never say, son or daughter, I'm proud of you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's almost this decisions where you gotta know that that's a core belief that your parents have, and you yourself have to make a decision to know what's gonna make you happy.
Yeah, you can't live your life trying to work for that son or daughter, I'm proud of you. You can't live your life looking for that the entire time. As much as you want to hear it, like sometimes you can't hear it, like you said. You know,
yeah,
like
you're gonna disappoint yourself.
I mean, I think that's the thing, is you have to build like your own internal sense of validation. Like I think everybody seeks external validation. That's a normal human feeling, reaction. You know, we feel bad if we're left out. We feel bad if, you know, nobody invites us, or you know, like that's like a very normal thing. And like I think it's so apparent, like on social media, of course, like people want validation. They want people to notice them. Everybody wants that, and that's such a normal feeling. Brought to you by Egg.
Brought to you by Eggs, everyone.
I haven't eaten one yet.
But you know, and I think it's really hard to develop your own like internal gauge of am I okay? And I think it brings, you know, I bring it back to what we spoke about in the earlier live stream about mindfulness and checking in with yourself. Not just like, you know, do I feel okay, but you know, it's kind of mindfulness. I see it as not just like being mindful of your body and like what you're thinking, but also emotions. Like if something happens and you notice that you feel sad, or you feel anxious, or maybe your heart is pumping, or maybe you feel tightened up. I think when you build mindfulness into your life, then you start to realize the things that bother you and the things that don't. And so you start to maybe quantify, like, wow, all of these things make me feel bad, and they make me like do things that are unhealthy. So you kind of learn to change that behavior. And then conversely, these things bring me a lot of joy. These people bring me a lot of joy. Doing these activities like really enrich my life. And so when you realize that like your body and your mind and your emotion are actually all connected, and you are thinking about it and you notice it, then you're gonna do more of the things that make you happy, and you're gonna do less of the things that make you miserable.
Yeah, I feel like you just like, I have a coworker that like I sometimes struggle with things. Like I have a mental illness, so I have a lot of support network. I talk to my mom, I talk to everyone. But having a mental illness, a lot of people, they feel like they can control you. Like even though I'm out about it and I talk about it, people still think that like because I'm asking them because I have a problem or something, they'll think that they can tell me something and I have to do it exactly. They're like, I know what's better for you, I know what's good for you, this is the way to do it. And because I have a mental illness, I am more susceptible to being like, yeah, okay, maybe that's the right way to go, because I can't trust myself all the time.
Sure, and that's very valid.
Because I feel like sometimes I don't exactly know how my moods are, I don't know where my mind is at. Some people outside me, because I trust them and how my recovery has come so far, it's because they know me, you know?
Yeah.
But I've gotten to a point in my recovery now where I'm talking to my coworker who also has a lived experience, and she's just saying, you know, just be yourself. You really have to be yourself. You really have to trust yourself. You really have to make your own mistakes. You really have to live your own life. And there's like a certain freedom in that that's actually kind of nice, you know.
So then what would you say in your case, right? Like, did your parents ever compare you to other people?
Oh yeah.
So then how did you deal with that? Because that's actually a concern that
I tried to prove them wrong.
Okay.
You know, I did it in a way that was like very show-offy.
Okay. Because
they were like, oh, your cousin's smarter than you. So I was like, well, I'll be smarter than her and I won't give a fuck.
Yeah.
So I did that. But I feel like some people, like, it's hard for them to move away from it because they're so, like, a lot of my friends are so close with their family.
Right.
So they still need to, like, I feel like every person just still needs to break off a little bit, and then they find their own rhythm. Like, you can't find your own rhythm if you're just like constantly like with your family all the time. It's good to be like filial piety. It's good to like honor your parents. It's good to honor your elders. I really believe in that, you know, and like understanding your culture, where you're from, and like traditions. I love all of that, you know. Like, I feel like we lose that because that part of our existence is actually very important, you know. Like, being Americanized is awesome, but also knowing our traditions is good. But like to prove, okay, to go back, like to prove, like to escape comparison, I think you just have to be like strong in yourself and just, you know, just tough it through. Like, you can't let it affect you as much as it really does affect you, you know. Like it hurts like hell. Like, they say all these things, but you just have to understand and love yourself enough to go like, yeah, maybe their opinion doesn't matter as much as me loving myself. Like, a big part of mental health care is a thing called self-care. Even professionals do it too. So you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else. So if you want to like make sure your goals and your ideals and your future and everything that you feel like is important to you hold still, you just have to take care of yourself. So that means buying yourself a new leather jacket. That means going out to eat something good. That means hanging out with your friends. That means reading your favorite book, even if your parents don't like you reading comic books or whatever it is, you know.
Going for a walk.
Going for a walk, like going to do some exercise, like dating someone else that's not your ethnicity. Like, there's all these different things, So, you know.
I mean, that totally makes sense, because I think when I was in middle school, going on to high school, I was always compared with one of my mom's friend's kids. And he was like 2-3 years younger than me, and his math level just excelled mine. And because I'm older, I'm supposed to know more, right? And so I was compared to him a lot. And I just remember like his mom being really snobby, and I don't really like her at all. But like, I just remember, you know, like, cause you're so young, you're vulnerable, right? And your mind is just easily, like moldable, right? And so to me, I felt like, damn, I must be dumb, like legit dumb, because I can't even like answer this question like as fast as this kid can, right? But then I had to like reflect about it and think about it and be like, well, is math something I really want to excel in? No! Okay, so should I be concerned about being really good in math? No!
And you bring up such an important point, and I think what I want to say is, like, oftentimes what brings us down isn't just the fact that other people, especially our loved ones, will criticize us in a way that is negative, but also because we internalize it and we criticize ourselves. That is probably like the #1 killer of your own ego, is when you tell yourself you suck, you're a loser, you're dumb. And something that, you know, like, that I really try to advocate for. And that's what hurts you the most, is when you tell your
in our private times, like, everyone does it, you know?
And I think what you have to remember, and I want people to think about it this way, is if you were to talk to like your best friend, your partner, somebody who you really love, would you talk to them the way that you talk to yourself?
Right.
Would you say those things?
No, I wouldn't. I just want to be supportive.
Exactly. And so I think,
I've been talked to that way before.
It's
not fun.
It's not fun, right? Would you tell your most beloved
Thanks,
people
ex-girlfriend.
that this is
Let me give you a hug, bro.
No, leave me alone. You're gonna treat me the same way.
Oh
no. You know, so I think we have, you know, to really think about how we talk to ourselves. Like, how do you look at yourself? I think we should always look to improve, but that's very different from looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you suck, you're a loser, you're not worthy, you're a burden. You know, and that's what brings you into isolation, because then you feel like, wow, I'm really a terrible person, when you're really not, you know, but you've internalized it and it just replays in your mind.
And that's a challenge. I mean, like, how hard is it for many people to be like, hey, you know, look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. Like, how is it?
I've
how
heard
hard
that people do that.
Yeah, see,
I've never done it. I've heard
try doing it and look yourself in the eye and tell yourself that, you know, you love yourself. That is difficult.
It really is.
But it's well worth it, for sure.
And, you know, I'm gonna say, sometimes you just gotta fake it till you make it, you know? Even if, like, you don't feel it, just say it and make it a practice. Or say something nice about yourself, or like, wow, I did this really well today. Like, be proud of yourself and do that often.
Fuck it.
Yeah, you know, it's something that's very subconscious that I kind of over time started to realize that before I would be able to look at myself in the mirror as I brush my teeth. And it's just something simple. I'm just like looking at myself as I'm brushing my teeth, right? It was nothing big, but I remember a period of time I started to not look in the mirror and I just started to brush without looking at it. And I just kind of realized over time, I was like, wow, I don't want to look at myself because I hate myself. Because like to the point that I don't even want to see myself brush my teeth. Yeah, it was insane. I was like, oh my God. And then I just remember when I started to feel more comfortable with myself and starting to like the direction that I am going, I started to actually start looking at myself in the mirror. I'm like, oh my God, it's been a while since I've seen myself, you know? Like it was like legit something that was so subtle and so minor that I didn't realize what I was going through at that time.
But that's something that I want to like point out is it's minor and it's something that you build over time.
It's like that compass you were talking about.
Exactly.
Like you're monitoring yourself thing.
Yeah, so during the break, go to the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself.
Or congratulate yourself for something that you did well today or something that you were proud of.
Yeah, pat yourself on the back or something.
Like you need to celebrate yourself, like, you know, treat yourself.
Let us know how it went. We'd love to know how it went. We'll do the same.
So,
eat an egg.
Eat an egg.
Eat an egg, yeah.
So before we actually take a real quick break, I do want to ask one more question that I feel like a lot of people do want to know. And it's kind of like earlier what you touched upon, Leo, where it's just like you love your family and you care about them a lot and you do want to do the things that would make them proud of you, but at the same time, sometimes it can be so toxic that you just need to cut yourself off from them. So do you feel like that there's this in-between where you don't necessarily have to do that?
When you grow up more and you're able to kind of take care of yourself, I know like rent is like horrible now and like cost of living and wages and everything, and it's really tough, you know, but when you separate yourself like that a little bit, it just helps the entire thing. When you put some distance in between yourself and you're not there every day, I know it's like a horrible step and we're always thinking about this and that. And it's easy because parents are like, you know, okay, you can live in my house, that's totally fine, you know. And when you're older, they give you like more freedom and everything. And then you get like a meal at night or something like that, you know. But
you're one meal. Always love you.
Just one.
But when you know they cook a meal for you, despite the fact that you're not talking,
it's homemade,
that's like love.
Homemade Asian food, dude. Like you get some dumplings at night after you go party. That's fucking sweet. But you know, like if you separate yourself a little bit, like it helps a lot because it's not really that you're gone forever or, you know, it's totally like that. Because I think like unless your family is really bad, like let's say your dad hits you or like abused you or your mom is like alcoholic or something like that, that's cause for get the fuck out of there for sure. Because that
is something you should tell someone.
That happens and you need to get the hell out of there to save yourself. But if your family is being like mildly abusive or something like that, then you should like separate yourself a little bit, because it could be like, you know, I'm a proponent of people like being shitty just because they're shitty, but there's also reason to believe that like maybe they went through some trauma too. And they're kind of abusive because they've been abused. So you need to stop that like chain and then take yourself out of it and then just kind of take care of yourself. And then maybe they'll like realize what you're doing, you'll start loving yourself. And that's the in-between, cutting themselves out, like cutting it completely and then being there completely.
So then what would you say would be the first steps of kind of distancing yourself away from them? Like, I mean, would it end in a fight, or would it just be something where you just don't talk to them, or like how would you come about that first step of actually stepping away from them?
For me, first things first was to rebel.
Oh, okay.
Because like I think like a lot of Asian people, they think like teenagers don't rebel or something. Maybe.
Oh,
I don't know.
My parents for sure know I rebelled.
Yeah,
a lot.
So I think that's.
I'm good.
She's a rebel.
I'm a good girl though.
I think you need.
But I think a little bit of being a little bit rebellious is good. I feel like it's good for your own sanity. Yeah. Because like now you feel alive that you're actually fighting for something that you want versus fighting for something that might not even mean anything.
I mean, I think, you know, we also have to think about like rebelling. People don't rebel just to be bad. They rebel also to like figure themselves out.
Yes.
It's a journey,
yeah.
you know, and I think, you know, when you're trying to separate yourself from your family, if you have to, like, yeah, there are going to be some really bad times at times, and sometimes there are going to be great times, you know, but it's hard, and you're going to fail at things, and your parents and your family are going to point it out, but you just have to learn from it. You have to move forward, and you have to learn from it, because ultimately your family want to see that you can stand up on your own.
Yeah.
And when they see that you can do it by yourself and you can do it well, then there is probably a better likelihood that they're going to be able to respect your decisions.
And you know, if you're suffering from like a negative family dynamic, I would say that if you plan on finding other alternatives, make sure that they're positive alternatives. You know what I mean? Like if you know that you're getting abused at home or something like that, you know, maybe there's positive alternatives outside of the home. Maybe get a job that'll take you away from the home. Maybe join a fellowship or a group or something that, you know, that'll keep you out of the home until you know it's safe. Let's say that you're underage. You know what I mean? You're barely making ends meet, and you know, like you're trying to go to school or whatnot. Just make sure that they're all positive alternatives. Don't try to like rebel to the point where you're like, well, like how I used to do it, you know, which would be like, you know, drinking every day, smoking dope, and you know, all that stuff. Don't do that. You know, find positive alternatives.
Don't do that.
Yeah, seek resources. And because, you know, like if you're suffering from alcoholism or addiction, or if you know people in your family doing it, you know, it is considered a family disease, you know what I mean? Because, you know, those traits, you know, from previous generations get passed down, you know what I mean? Until you make a decision to...
Asian people smoke so much.
Yeah, to find a positive alternative in your life that'll disconnect you from that behavior. So, and all underlining the underlying disease of all alcoholism and addiction is codependency. So we got to work on that stuff too.
Yeah, like how your family dynamic works. It's very complicated. You'll have like an enabler. You'll have like the older person that tries to be like the parent, or just like it gets so complicated that sometimes you need to, you know, just distance yourself from like how this is like the family's just messed up, you know.
And I think it's important to remember that people don't use drugs thinking like, oh, I want to mess my life up, you know, but you use it as a form of escape, and you have to escape so often. And the addiction, like the physiological, psychological aspect of addiction is so real, because it's also not just like you're thinking about it, but also your body becomes addicted. And because you need it to escape, it's really hard for people to get out of that. And so, you know, even like the strongest people can fall to addiction, because, you know, even if you're like in the right mindset, I think like, you know, you may have a genetic predisposition, or like certain things are triggering and they'll lead you into some other direction. So, I mean, I think overall you just have to be very careful, and, you know, as best as you can, surround yourself with people who are not only positive, but will also tell you like to get your act together.
I mean,
like you need to have honest friends and honest family.
The biggest thing is like I'm afraid of people, and it was me too. Like I was in college when like my illness got more serious. The biggest part of how it got worse was that I didn't want to tell anyone. I felt like I couldn't tell my parents. I felt like I couldn't tell my sister. I was like, there's no way that my brain could be like this. There's no way. Like, there's no way that I could just be like messed up. I don't want to feel like I'm stupid. I don't want to feel like I'm asking a question that no one cares about. And it was hard to get friends, you know? So like she said, like you have to surround yourself with honest people and someone that you feel like you could talk to. And sometimes you feel like your parent won't accept it. You could try, you know? Some parents will actually open up and they'll be like, okay, like let's deal with this. Maybe even like insular, but at least you have something.
Or maybe they won't react well at first, but maybe you give them time.
Yeah.
Maybe give them time.
But you have to find someone that you trust and you love, because I feel like even though I'm saying a lot of things that's like, oh, you're independent and you need to do this by yourself, but you need to have people that really, like, you surround yourself with people that are honest, people that you really care about, that really love you. That's really important in life, like super, super important. And you never know where it comes from. You just have to try, but it'll happen. And you know, like when I'm touching on the drug thing, my drug counselor told me that drug addiction is when you trust drugs more than anything else in your life. Like you love drugs more than your mom, you love drugs more than your sister, you love drugs more than your girlfriend, you love drugs more than your husband, your wife, your grandma, whatever. So like this thing, you'll sacrifice everything for it. So you need to find other things, like even like people in your lives that you would be willing to do that for. Like, you know, what we do is probably like our clients. We love our clients a lot. We love, you know, people who are watching, we want to do that. But there are certain things that you want to do for people that's very, very genuine. And I think that can help with mental disorders, because when you talk it out, it helps. That's why therapy works.
Yeah, I would say that finding positive coping mechanisms rather than reverting to, you know, just a vice is definitely the better route to go. Because for a lot of alcoholics and addicts, you know, I mean, alcohol and drugs are the solution until it wasn't. You know what I mean? It is the solution until it wasn't, and then it became the problem. So that's when it just starts hitting home and it starts taking you down, and your life is gone. You know what I mean? You go into isolation, you know, you end up homeless, prostitution, things like that. You know what I mean? So if you're suffering with any type of negativity in your life, you know, seek resources. There are people that are willing to talk to you. Friends, if you say that you don't have many friends, go seek a therapist. And don't stop with the first therapist. If you don't like the first therapist, find other therapists. If you need medication, see a psychiatrist. Things of that nature, you know what I mean? There is help. Don't give up, but just do not resort to using vices to cope with whatever you're going through.
And I would say that if you're having problems like making and finding friends, like go out and do something that you like. And oftentimes, if you're at an event or something that you're doing something that you like, and other people are doing similar things that you like, you will find community in those people because you're into the same things.
Just talk to them.
That's like one connection that you can make, and just you can do that in every aspect. Exactly.
Just talk to them. Like, just fuck it. Like, you gotta live in the moment. Like, sometimes, you know, you think, like I do it all the time. Like, oh, like I wish this would happen. I wish that would happen. But you gotta just try sometimes. Because if you don't try, it'll just pass by you. And life is pretty short. Like, it sucks, but it's pretty short.
Alright. Well, we're gonna end our live stream for just a brief 10 minutes. We're gonna take a quick break. The next session that we're gonna do is we're gonna answer general mental health questions that you guys have for us. Oh my god.
Too much egg.
Too much egg.
I know. But yeah, please be sure to tune into that one and leave us a comment in our Instagram live, and we'll go ahead and try to answer as many questions as we can. So
don't forget to say you love yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. In this break, say love yourself. I love myself. Say
I love you. Look in the mirror. Say I love you.
Just like that. Like,
because we love you. We love you.
Oh.
So we'll be back in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. We are now entering the second session of today, and it's basically general health questions that you guys have for us, as well as any last-minute questions that you guys want to ask in our Instagram live feed. But to kind of catch you guys up, if this is your first time watching us and you guys missed the first half, we're just gonna go ahead and introduce ourselves. So I'm Julia. I will be your host for today, and then we're gonna go with Marielle.
Hello, Marielle, mental health professional and advocate in for a lot of things: health, mental health, LGBTQ, education.
Nolan Ross. I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor. I'm also an advocate and activist, LGBTQ issues, HIV/AIDS issues, etc., etc.
My name's Leo Huang. I am also an advocate, sort of a professional. I'm also a past addict, and I also have I suffer from a mental illness also. Yeah, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar.
Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and jump into our first question, which is, I find that I overthink and get anxious with my relationship. What are ways I can control it?
What relationship?
Maybe well, let's go off with a boyfriend-girlfriend, or like a dating relationship.
I don't know anything about that.
But you know what they say? It's like like coach don't play, right? Like you give, like single people give the best advice because they don't. I don't know how true that is. Yeah, you heard that? Coach don't play.
I don't know.
Somebody told me that one.
Coach don't play.
I don't know.
Okay, so
I don't know, cause I feel like, cause like I've been single for like there has been a period of time where I was single for more than 5 years. And to me, it was just whenever I saw people in relationships, like I never really felt anything. I was like, oh cool, they're having a fun time together. But I don't think I would be a great person to give relationship advice because of what? I've been single for more than 5 years, so what gives me that rapport, you know?
Well, I mean, being single doesn't give you like a better idea of like what kind of relationship advice to give, but I would say that like if you actively choose to be single, and or maybe because you're single because you haven't met someone that you would want to be in a relationship with, rather than like you're single and desperate and just want to be in any relationship. Like those are very different things.
Sounds like thank you.
Yeah. I was like, no salsa.
Wait, we haven't answered the question. Okay, so how do we deal with overthinking and anxiety in a relationship? How can you control it? So I think what's really important to address when you think about like overthinking and anxiety, it's usually because of this idea that you have that you're perpetuating, but isn't exactly in line with what's occurring. I mean, maybe it is, but it's something that you haven't addressed and you kind of let it play and you let it replay circles and circles over your head. So you end up kind of like perseverating over these ideas. And how do you break that cycle of perseverating over these bad ideas? One is you talk about it. You address it, right? You get to the root of it. You figure out, does my partner, or whatever this relationship is, does this person actually feel this way? Sometimes, a lot of times, like these arguments are a consequence of miscommunication and misunderstanding, right? So sometimes just ask, like, hey, this happened, or these things have been happening, and I really didn't feel good about them. Like, can we talk about it?
Yeah. That's
actually a much harder conversation to start. I mean, how many times have any of us been in relationships and you feel something bad, but you're really scared to address it with that person, right? How many times? Like all the time, right? It's like you don't want to say anything, right? Because you're embarrassed, and you're wondering if like your concerns are valid.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't know if it's just in your head, if you're just making things up.
And I would say that would be in any relationship, whether it's, boyfriend, girlfriend, or if it's with like a teacher or in your professional setting, you know what I mean? A lot of it comes from fear. Fear of what the outcome can be, or we may think we know what the outcome is, and we're perceiving that as to be the result. And then until it is addressed or until we talk about it, we're always going to have this underlining anxiety or fear or unsettledness, inside until we really know what the answer is.
And let's say you do figure out the answer is, and it's an answer that doesn't sit well with you, or something that is just bad. Okay, well at least now you know, and you can decide from that point on how to go forward. Because if you never address it, you're just going to keep going in circles.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, sometimes, like I have a best friend, and sometimes it's difficult to communicate. Hopefully she's not watching. But sometimes it's difficult to like communicate, and sometimes you just need to take a little break. It's okay to kind of just like, I'm not going to talk to you every day right now. I'm just going to do my own thing for a second, and then you do your own thing, and then maybe later we could talk about it. Because if you think like you have to solve it all the time, which I feel like sometimes, it doesn't really, nothing really gets fixed.
Right, and I think we forget that there's a natural ebb and flow in relationships. Like sometimes you're really, really tight with certain people, and sometimes you're not. And that's just a part of life. It's not necessarily because this person is ignoring you. Like maybe, like you're busy, they're busy. Like the older you get, I feel like it takes like months and months of planning for me to see any of like some of my friends, because it's just everybody's got lives and people are married and they have kids. And like people just get busy, and sometimes you just have to say like, hey, I was thinking of you, or like, hey, I was at this place and I saw this thing that we both like, or just, you know, hi.
Yeah.
You know, say hi.
I like the thinking of you thing. That's really sweet.
Yeah, that is always nice. I do have like, there have been moments where people come across like my mind and I'm like, oh yeah, I should see what they're up to. It's been a really long time since I've seen them. And I'll just message them and then it'll be like, oh cool, they're alive, neat. Like move on to like just doing your other things. But yeah, I think it's always nice too, because like I do have friends that pop in and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like we should hang out sometime. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's been a while since I last seen you. Like it could be like a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's a long time.
And that's natural.
Yeah.
You know, like that happens to all of us, you know, whether it's friends, whether it's family. And I think, you know, you just have to remember that a lot of times people aren't like actively trying to ignore you, they're just busy. But it feels that way. It's so easy to feel that way, right? And then that's when you tell yourself like, oh, people don't want to hang out with me. And that's what's damaging.
You just gotta trust sometimes. You just gotta trust and love, man.
So I kind of want to go ahead and re-explain what we're doing right now. So we are in part 2 of our live session, and we're basically answering any general mental health questions that you guys have. So we actually have one right now from someone who's following us, and this is jgreasy_G. They were wondering if any of the speakers could share a time they made a choice that they knew would disappoint family and what they learned about the relationship from that. Yeah.
One more time?
Yeah, I know. It was a little much.
Question.
Share a time that they made a choice that they knew would disappoint family and what they learned about that relationship from that.
Okay, so I could go first.
Yeah.
Go first. So there was, I think it was like during, like when my mental health breakdown was happening. So I wasn't taking medication. I already was diagnosed. And then I was with my family. And then I decided, because I'm really close with like my half brothers, my parents were divorced. So I really love my half brothers, but there was like a point in time, it could have just been my illness, but I think it was also true. I didn't like the way that they were being raised. So I told my parents that they were spoiling them and they weren't giving them like correct values. And then basically they like excommunicated me. Like I haven't seen my brothers in like 6 years or something like that. And I like raised them. So what I learned from that experience, like even though it was like it was like a very incremental thing that happened in my life, I realized that maybe my stepmom's a huge bitch. You know, like I kept trusting her because I was like, I need to trust her because she's like the mother of like my brothers, and I honor my dad marrying her, and she made money for us and all this stuff. And you know, in the end I just kind of learned that, you know, like maybe not every part of your family, not everyone you have to go the whole 9 yards for. Sometimes you have to just go, hey, even though that person's close to me, I need to not be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that one of the toughest time when I had to tell my parents something was when I came out of the closet.
Ooh,
officially.
Yeah.
So like my mom called me into her room after, you know, certain instances happened, and then she asked me, hey, you know, like, can I ask you a question? And I go yes, and I already knew what it was, you know what I mean? Growing up, I knew for a long time. Of course, they probably knew what was going on, you know what I mean? But I go, would you love me still if I said yes? She goes, well, let me ask. She goes, are you gay? And I go, my response was, would you love me still if I said yes? And she said, of course, yes. It took, you know, she paused and she said yes. And then I told her, and then a week passed, and you can feel like this like cloud in the house, you know what I mean? A week passed. And then I came home one day. I don't know if it was from work or from a friend's house or whatnot, but I remember the house. I could feel the energy. The house was super dark, and all I heard was screaming coming from my sister's room.
Yeah.
And my mom was pressed up against the corner. My sister tried to console her, and she kicked her off the bed. And then my dad was like, "Look what you did! Look what you did!" You know what I mean? It was just because I told them that, you know, that I was gay.
Yeah.
You know, so it was extremely traumatizing, and without going to divulging into too much of the story, if I was to learn anything from that moment just based on that moment. Like if I knew at that moment, you know what I mean, that it would have been healthier for me to say, you know what, I love myself and I love me for who I am.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean, like I know that they don't accept me, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I can do this for me and love me and for me and be happy for me, not to make them happy, or not to live my life happy, not to live my life or make decisions in my life to just make them happy. I would be in 110% better place than I was, you know, back then, you know what I mean? Because that took me into drugs, alcohol, sex, you know, all, you know, like multiple partners, you know what I mean? Just like, you know, like depression, anxiety, all that stuff, you know what I mean? If I knew that I could disconnect from my family at that point and be strong enough for myself and believe in a higher power, then I would probably, maybe wouldn't have gone through all that grief, you know what I mean? All that sadness and all that, you know, the abuse, the self-abuse, all that stuff, you know, so. But I'm in a better place now.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm a lot happier now today. I have to say I'm a lot happier today than I was yesterday, and if I could continue doing what I'm doing now and sharing experience, strength, and hope, then I'll be even more happier tomorrow, so yeah.
But even in those days when you're not always on like an upward trajectory towards happiness, that's normal too. Like it's normal, and you're gonna have like some bad days, and you're gonna have some great days.
Absolutely.
And it's not always gonna be like a path up, you know? It's gonna be up and down, and that's normal.
I have my bad days. I do.
Yeah. So the question that we just answered was, has there been a point in your life that you felt like you disappointed your family, and what did you learn from that in terms of your relationship with them? So that's basically what was answered. Yeah, and you know, I'm seeing you guys giving us a lot of hearts, so thank you. We appreciate it, we love you guys. So if you guys have any questions about mental health, please go ahead and leave them in our Instagram stream, and we'll be sure to answer them. So the next question that we have is, how do I feel comfortable going into my first session of therapy? Because I feel like that's kind of tough, right? Because I think, I mean, I never seen a therapist or anything like that, but I would imagine that even having the courage to finally admit and accept that you need to see one and that you want to see one is something to just overcome, right? And to be proud of, right? That it's like, hey, I'm doing what I need to do in order to get myself better, right? And to be more healthy, right? And so I feel like the first session too, I think anything that you do for the first time is so scary. So like, what can you do to feel comfortable with that?
So I think the biggest thing, like I talked about this at our meeting today, or someone mentioned it, for the API community, a lot of times when we talk about mental health, we talk about the point of emergency, where when something happens, then we take action to correct that emergency situation, like hospitalization or suicide or something happens, and then you're like, okay, I need to go to therapy, I need to figure this out. But the real thing about going to therapy, it's like a preventative measure. Everyone should have a therapist, every single person. So going to therapy is like a regular thing. There shouldn't be like stigma attached to it. So when you go there in the approach that maybe there's something wrong, maybe I need to fix something, I don't want anything like more serious to happen in the future, then that's the correct approach to have. You shouldn't feel it like it's an emergency situation. You should go about it as like, you know what, like I'm just checking my health. I'm getting a physical, you know, I'm just checking my blood pressure, see how this goes, you know. But if it becomes that more serious point, then try out different therapists, like we said before, and you know, try to trust as much as you can in the process. I know it's really tough, but trust as much as you can, unless it doesn't fit for you. But you know, you have to believe that, you know, be honest about things, I guess. Be honest with your therapist.
I think also what's important to remember is when you're seeing a therapist is that you can share as much as you want, and you can choose to share as little as you want. You know, I think it's very natural to feel very guarded when you meet someone, even if they're a therapist and you know they're there to help you. It's really natural to feel like, I don't know if I can share these details with this person. Like, you're sharing the most intimate, painful details of your life oftentimes when you see a therapist, and that's hard. And you know, so give yourself time to warm up, give yourself time to open up and just know that you're not going to fix this in one session. You know, you're not going to fix your life in one session. You're not going to solve this problem in one session. And a lot of the work isn't just when you're in the therapy session. A lot of it happens when you're out of therapy. So remember that.
Yeah, so this is actually a question that just kind of came to mind because in the area that I grew up in, I would say there's definitely a lot of Asians. Like I would say probably 95% Asians went to my school, and I just remember just kind of a lot of my classmates would just kind of half joke, but actually really be serious about these types of things. Where it's just, oh, you know, when you see a therapist, it means that, you know, you're crazy, you're not right in the head, right? And when you have to take medication, right, then it's even more frowned upon, right? Where it's just like, no, you're legit crazy, right? Or it just leaves a bad stigma and a bad taste in your mouth. And I know that growing up in that environment, a lot of people start thinking like, well, I don't want to be the person that seems helpless and that I need to take these drugs in order for me to be better. You know, it's like I can overcome it without drugs, right? So it now starts to become like this hurdle where it's just like, well, no, I'm better than drugs, I don't need it, right? But then what do you say to those? Because I've seen these drugs actually work and really help people and have them be better, but then like how do you knock down that stigmatism? Because it's just like, I don't think that's fair. Like I don't think that's fair for you to think that way about it, because it's actually something that's being helpful, not going against what it's trying to do.
I mean, I would say that it's a lot harder to confront people you know than it is to confront strangers.
Yeah.
Right? Like people who you love and trust, who like openly make fun of mental illness. Yeah. It's a lot harder to talk to them than to someone you don't know and just be like, you're wrong.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And that's hard. And so how do you have those conversations? You know, you say things like, you know, when you said this, like, we need to talk about this. Like, this is not right. And you have to talk about it. Like that's the opening point, is you have to talk about it, you know? I mean, in a lot of, like, what is it? The studies show that if you know one gay person, you are, you know, automatically a more open person to, like, other lifestyles, and you're a better person. Because why? Because you've been educated. You know how other people live. You accept it and you realize, wow, being an LGBTQ person doesn't mean you're terrible. Yes, you do deserve the right to, like, equity, to access to, like, marriage. You know, because now you're realizing that these like labels aren't just labels. There are people and humans attached to it, and people who have lives, and people who get hurt. You know, you need to humanize it.
So then what do you say to the people who are scared to take these drugs?
I think the big thing is like, I'm guessing in your environment, like people, like when did it become so shameful that there's like adversity in your life, you know? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like I'm assuming that people in your school are like, oh, I have like the best job, I have a Mercedes Benz, I have this. It's like,
I mean,
you know,
it's
like,
a highly academic environment, and so it's just like if you go to UC, that's great, but it depends which UC you go to. If you go to Cal State or community college, you literally failed. Yeah,
I mean, like it's like there is like adversity, like something hard in your life is seen as something that's like really shitty. You know, like if you do well in your grades and that's it, like then that's great. But if you struggle to get your grades, probably that's looked down upon too, right?
Yeah.
So like, why is working hard for, like, why is having a tough life seen as something that's bad? I don't see the problem with that. It makes you more of a character. I think it gives you more character. That's just how it is. Like for us, like maybe for me especially, like a lot of people can go like, oh, you know, you're a drug addict, that was like the shittiest time of your life, you know, like, oh, you should be ashamed of that stuff. Sometimes, like my clients have told me, hey, at least you did drugs, whatever's, right? You had some fun. I'm like, maybe I did, right? And then like the better part is that maybe I did these drugs so that I could help people that are going through that right now not feel so alone and help them quit. You know, so that adversity in itself gave me a reason for being. So why should perfection be something that you always strive for? There's no substance there. It's just boring, you know? Like how much can you drive your Mercedes Benz before it gets boring to you? You know what I mean?
I mean, some of the rebuttals that I've heard from people who are afraid to take medication is that they don't want to be addicted or be like reliant on them or dependent on them.
Well, I think, you know, some medications are just there for the short term to kind of help you out, and sometimes they're long term, and only you and your like doctor can decide that. You know, that is something that you have to work on an individual basis.
Yeah, your doctor
and sometimes it's case by case. Like sometimes you know, let's say you're a person who has anxiety or depression, or you know, and you need it during certain times more than others, you know, like maybe certain times of the year, or maybe you had a really rough spell, or maybe you had postpartum depression. Doesn't mean you're going to be on antidepressants forever, but you know, sometimes they really do help. Not to say that, you know, like these medications don't have side effects, because they do. But again, this is just something that you're going to have to work with your doctor, and you have to talk about like how the medications are working, and you also have to talk about, wow, it gives me these side effects, like I don't like how it makes me feel, because there are other medications out there, okay? And unfortunately, and this is something that I feel like we don't really talk about often, is when you are on psychiatric medications, oftentimes is you have to try different ones to find the right fit, because they don't all work the same. You have a number of SSRIs, you know, which not only treat anxiety but also depression, OCD, you know, sometimes you know, like other addiction, substance use, but like one doesn't work the same as another one, doesn't work the same as another one, so you try a different one. And unfortunately, that's also a lot of emotional labor, like physical labor, especially because sometimes those side effects are actually physical, you know, and that's hard, and it's hard to be patient with that, because you just want to get better so badly, and you're thinking, why are these side effects happening to me?
But medication does help. Like,
it does,
that's just the bottom line. Like, people can put stigma against it, but it works, you know? That's what the tools that we have right now. It's not perfect. Like, a psychiatrist can't just take your genetic material and go like, oh, you need this drug, you're like allergic to this drug, you need this dosage, blah, blah, blah. It's not perfect yet, but doctors have been doctors for a while. They can see what's actually happening. You have to trust them. You have to trust yourself. You have to be honest with your side effects and just work on that. It's not perfect, but it actually does help. So why go against something that actually does help? Don't take Klonopin. Just don't do that, you know? But, you know, medication does help. It can help you a lot.
Klonopin is a kind of benzodiazepine, for those of you guys who don't know.
That's what I was wondering.
It is in the same class of drugs as Xanax.
And if you're going to be taking any type of antipsychotic or benzo or opioid, make sure that you do it, you know, and under, you know, doctor's, you know, discretion, has prescribed, all of that, you know what I mean? Anytime that you start abusing it, you're crossing the line, you know what I mean? You're definitely crossing the line. I remember I was taking, I think it was it was anti-anxiety or something like that, and I had, it was a symptom, a side effect, I think it's called, what is it?
Akathisia?
Yeah, akathisia.
You're like restless?
Yeah, super restless. I felt like, I remember sitting in a room with a bunch of people, and there were windows, and all I kept thinking was like, dude, I just want to jump out of that window, you know what I mean? There was like no floors down below, you know what I mean? It was just like, I just want to jump out of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just felt, and I literally during I was at a convention, the entire time, I had to walk, I just had to keep walking, because I just felt like I was super restless. Yeah. So when you gotta monitor the way you feel, go to your doctor. Mental illnesses, practically all the diagnoses are on a spectrum from like mild to severe, you know what I mean? So not one medication, right when you're prescribed, it may not work right away. Go back, check it out, you know what I mean? Maybe less of a dosage, maybe more of a dosage, you know what I mean?
But, or maybe change the time of the day that you take it, you know, and that's also an option.
Yeah.
And I would also add that sometimes you can't bypass these side effects, and you have to manage, or there are medications that you could take to address the side effects. But that is a conversation that you're gonna have to get to when you talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
I feel like what really worked for me was, once you get into the position where you have to take medication, do some research by yourself too. Go online, look up the different medications, look what this one doesn't match with this one, and what symptoms this works for. Do some reading for yourself, so that when you talk to the doctor, you know somewhat of what is going on. Because if you just go in there blindly, you'll just, you know, you'll just take everything, you'll just go with it, you know. But since we kind of know about it, it's easier for us to talk about, like, we can go there and be prepared for it. But if it's just you for the first time going there to take medicine, just look it up, learn a little bit about it, and then talk to your doctor about it, and maybe you can work something out that makes more sense for you.
And I think something that this is just, you know, overall advice whenever you see like your doctor or whoever you go for your care. If you are the kind of person who you have a lot of questions, but you go see your doctor or your provider and you blank out, write it down. Write it down, write it on a paper, type it in your phone, and have it with you. And, you know, and I remember even when my parents would go to the doctor and, you know, sometimes things would just fly over their head. So I will sit with them in the office or in their doctor's room, you know, and I won't say anything, but I'll be listening. You know, and so if I sense that my parents are struggling to explain, or I remembered something that they wanted to say but didn't have a chance to say, then I'll be like, hey mom, why don't you ask about this? Yeah, you know, and I won't ask for them, but I will say, mom, don't you remember this? And then she'll be like, oh yeah, because again, I'm working to empower my own parents to be able to advocate for themselves when they go see their doctors. Because sometimes my mom's like, oh, I don't know, that's like, I don't want to talk about like, oh, my menopausal stuff. And it's like, that's literally what you're supposed to do when you see your doctor. You know, but my mom's embarrassed. She's like, oh, because my guy's a man, you know, and I don't like men shouldn't know about that. And it's like, mom, he's your doctor. He's your doctor. You know, and that's just, again, just overall, whenever you see a provider, like write it down. Write it down. Or bring a friend.
Be honest.
Yeah.
I had a friend that would do that. Like, whatever he or she, whatever like they're feeling, they would just write it down in their journal, and then the next time they see their therapist, like they just discuss it. Yeah. So the next question that we have is, how do you know you're making the right decision career-wise when your doubts get in the way?
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. That's
you never know.
You never know.
You never know. I mean, how many career changes did I have? And now I just do like lots of different things. I think we get stuck in this idea that, like, you know, you pick your major or, you know, whatever like education you get, and then this is your job for the rest of your life. Like, no, nobody has to have a job for the rest of their life. I mean, you got to pay the bills or live somehow, but you're allowed to switch careers. Like, nobody is holding a gun to your head and saying you have to do this. Yeah. You know, you can choose to change your life. You can choose to switch positions, switch careers. And, you know, I think that is something that we're very fortunate to have in the US, is that kind of opportunity. Mm-hmm. I realize that's not something that everybody has. Even in the US, a lot of people don't have all the options that I feel like some of us do have. And that said, you know, again, you don't have to choose something that is not for you. Or if you find that something was for you and is no longer, okay, well then what do you want? Do you want to change it? Do you want to do something different? Then talk to people who are in that profession and ask them, what is it like? You know, so you know, at least rather than just jumping without any information, what this career change will look like, and then decide if that's something that you want to look more into and try.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting too, because like statistically, people who graduate from a particular, like whatever major they graduated in college, they don't end up doing it after college. Like I think it was like 80% of people end up doing something completely different from their major that they studied in. I mean, I feel like I also fall into that category too, because my program was a 5-year program, and it wasn't until my last year where I just realized, like, well, I don't necessarily want to draw for the rest of my life, but I do want to be in this area. And it just like took a few like gatherings with other people just to really figure out what I wanted to do, and it ended up being in like video production or just somewhere in production, which I am in now. But it was just like, I don't know, like I did feel lost for a long period of time, because I was like, well, I just spent like 4 or 5 years of my life dedicating to myself to be like a drawer, right? That like, now I'm gonna completely switch it. I'm gonna just like let go of everything about it. And I just remember I felt really bad, but then at the same time it was kind of like, well, it's better to know now that this is something I don't want to do for the rest of my life, and I know exactly what I want to do now. So now I can just put my efforts into working towards something I want.
For me, I think the biggest thing is no one wants a job. No one wants to work. You want to just like lay around and watch Netflix. No one wants to do anything. But the biggest thing is like when you are doing it, you just have to make sure that it's worth it. Like it's bearable. You know, that like at the end of the day, you feel like, oh, that was okay. You know, I got some stuff out of it. Not just money, but like it's worth the pain, you know?
Right. Everything has a cost.
Yeah, just like a relationship. You don't want to be in a relationship. No one wants to be in a relationship. But it's worth it. But it's worth it.
To my partner who's watching,
the person makes it worth it, you know? Like.
Yeah, everything has a cost. And I think, you know, just to touch upon what Julia was saying, I think it's also really important to remember that, like, what was I gonna say? Sorry, I just blanked out.
It's okay.
I just blanked out. I should have written it down. What were you saying?
So basically what I was saying was that I realized towards the end of my college career what exactly I wanted to do. So basically after I graduated college, I told myself, I was like, well, I'm gonna start from the bottom now and try to make this goal of mine happen.
But let me ask you one thing. Yeah. Do you to this day, do you never draw? Do you dislike drawing?
I don't draw anymore, so I don't really consider myself an artist, but it's not something I naturally, like, throughout my whole entire life, I didn't really doodle. Like, I draw when, like, I feel like it, but, like, I never, like, doodles in class or anything like that. So, like, to me, it's just, I don't really practice it anymore.
But did you learn other skills, you know, other things that you found out about yourself, you know, from this program, even though you're no longer drawing?
For sure, because one of the things in animation is that you have to definitely work in it as a team, right? You need to work in a team, and you kind of figure out what kind of team player you are. Are you the type of person that works better working alone and just getting one task and just be on their own, or are you better with other people and getting working together to make it happen? So I think for me, it's just when I was doing a group project, I realized that there was a lot of miscommunication happening between my members, and I just remember I was like, okay, this is not good. I don't like the way that this direction is going. So then I started delegating, and then as I was delegating and things were getting done, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of enjoyable.
So and that's why she's controlling.
So like, you know, because
we get it.
Now we get it. Yeah, because like I think to me it's just like I was never one to enjoy my own personal art. Like if I did it, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's cool, you know, because I feel like as an artist or as anyone, right, like you're your own worst critic. Yeah. And so for me, it's just like I never got any joy or satisfaction from having my own creations come to life. I actually had a lot more satisfaction helping other people get their creations to come to life. And so because of that, and with that project and other like group outings, like a draw like club or whatever, like I started to realize like, oh yeah, you know, I think like I'm more of someone who wants to help support other people versus trailblazing my own way. Yeah, so that's kind of like the realization that I have.
I mean, that seems like a really valuable realization.
Oh, thank you.
Like that's, I mean, even if you're not drawing now, like, I mean, realizing what your strengths are and that this is something that you actually enjoy, like how important is that? So like, yeah, you got, you know, you were on the path to study this and you learned some other skills during the time. Wow. And some important things. And I think, you know, we often forget that, you know, I know this is gonna sound super corny, but the journey is oftentimes more important than the end goal. You know, you have to take what you've learned from it, the good and the bad, and make it into something, because sometimes that is going to be way more valuable than the actual end goal that you had started off pursuing in the first place.
I'm sorry, y'all.
So the next question that I have is, but it's by Carl Sequing. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Carl, I don't know. Yeah, how would you say that? But anyways, Carol. I don't know. K-A-R-E-L. But what if you are trapped for a certain amount of time? I signed a contract and sacrificed a number of liberties due to an emotional choice I made and have regretted it ever since.
Contract?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Can't see that.
Yeah. Working towards the things
it could be like
a
behavioral contract. oftentimes that is something that some providers or sometimes educators will have.
It could be like a conservatorship, maybe?
It could be that as well. Because there are different legal implications. Like if you've been assigned a conservator, then legally you are now bound to the decisions, like the decision making of your conservator. So that is difficult. If it's something that is not legal, you're not bound to a legal contract, how do you address that?
Military.
Oh, military.
Military.
Okay.
Military.
So being separated from home, friends, and displacing hope for the future is something they struggle reconciling with.
I had a friend that was in the military. He was an asshole. I hated that guy. But I don't like that guy. But
we're not talking about you.
I'm not talking about him. But he told me that Asians in the military were like very mistreated. He told me about a case where this guy got like beaten up and almost killed because he was Asian. My friend is like sadistic, so he laughed about that, even though he's Asian. So fuck that guy. But I can understand how like crazy it can get in the military. I would say, get Dota or League of Legends. Try to like separate yourself from that a little bit, and like don't give in to like the culture of what the military is, and try to give in to like some of the other things that the military brings. Because maybe you have like self-conflicting thoughts. That's kind of like, oh, I'm in the military, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I see that war is bad, but I want to be a soldier. You have to know that there are people that really respect you for what you're doing, and that they really love you. And it's not like just like this like, oh, we're saluting the troops and this type of thing, but it's like an actual really honorable thing, and that we understand that you go through like really shitty things. I know that like in the Iraq war there was like IUDs, so like if you see a mine you would have to shoot everything around you. So soldiers would like see like a car full of like children, they would have to kill them no matter what if they're just around this mine. So I could see like there's like things that you guys have to go through that's just like really, really shitty. And that there's also being Asian in the military can also be really shitty. So I would hope that you understand that there are people who understand that are out there, and that there are other people that are in the military probably that also understand your troubles too, that you're not completely alone. I don't know if that helps.
I mean, it's a rough time right now for, I would say, like marginalized people in the military, given the current administration. And, like we're talking about like don't ask, don't tell, being back in the military, which is a huge problem for people who identify as LGBTQ, right? Because you don't get to live your truth. You don't get to live your truth, and that is damaging for everyone. How do you combat that? I mean, other than hoping that it's, and knowing that it's temporary, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I think you have to figure out what resources are available to you, know what your rights are in the military. I would say a huge part about taking care of your mental health is also advocating for yourself. And part of that is educating yourself on what resources are out there, what you're entitled to, what the law is. And I know that's not like a cool, fun answer, but like you gotta know your rights and you gotta know what's available out there. And unfortunately, there is an emotional labor, again, to like figuring this out. But it's either you try to figure out, or you kind of just, stay afloat for the next, 4 to whatever years that you've signed up for.
So the next question we have is by Raphael. He has actually several questions. So he says, so my question is, what should, okay, so basically, what should, oh my gosh, I'm trying to word it a little better because I know the grammar is a little bit all over the place. So, what should I do with my feelings ever since my girlfriend broke up with me? I don't know what to do with my feelings, and should I hide it or express it to someone? Oh shoot. And then, oh no, I lost it. And then basically it's just like how do you deal with the breakup, and what did you do to deal with that?
Well,
yeah.
big thing is sleep with someone else. No, I'm kidding. You could do that. But you can do that. But
that's a temporary
if you can do that. But I understand the fact, like I was in a position where I really loved this girl and she didn't love me and we broke up. She broke up with me and we were all friends with friends and my brother was involved and my other friends were involved and I felt like I couldn't tell anyone. Like I was just like trapped in this world where I was a shitty guy even though I didn't really know what was going on. So if you are to tell someone, talk to someone that is like away from the situation, that can see you for you and her for her without getting entangled in all this bullshit like politics or drama or whatever is. So even if you want to talk to your like mom about it or something, or someone that, I don't want to say it, but like if you were to talk to me and if it was your girlfriend breaking up with you, I would just say she's a huge bitch, you're better off.
Ooh, I would also say talk to people who are just gonna give it to you straight. Because sometimes, you know, like you have no idea why this person broke up with you and other people are like, yeah, it's because you're kind of like a bad partner. And it's like, what? Since when? And sometimes you need to hear it. Sometimes you need to hear it. But, you know, even if it wasn't your fault, which you know, again, like it's a two-way thing. So it's always going to be part of your fault. You know, you're not immune to everything, you know, because you contribute to that relationship or you choose not to contribute to that relationship, which is also damaging. You know, I think you need to have an honest conversation again of what happened. Did I do anything wrong? And you need to trust, you need to talk to people who are able to give you like actual real feedback, you know, and like helpful feedback. Sometimes you need it, and sometimes you do just need to tell somebody, or somebody needs to tell you, like, you know, F that girl or F that person, you know?
I would say also that, you know, like, you know, when I was younger, I jumped from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship. There was never any like single time really, and that was not good. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it builds codependency. You know what I mean? You don't get an opportunity to learn about yourself, to learn about your emotions, to grieve the loss of your ex or wherever or whatever. You know what I mean? So this is a great opportunity for you to start learning who you are as a person and as an individual, and start being able to love yourself. You know, so I would do that. If for some reason you need someone to talk to, of course, confide in a friend. Make sure that their intentions for you are great. You know, a lot of people confide in the wrong person, and then that person wants to like enable them or get in your pants or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So maybe like a therapist, or you know, you can see therapy too. Yeah. You know, and you know, just or grief counseling. You know what I mean? Even though that person's not, you know, like deceased or whatever, if you want, because it is kind of like you've lost somebody. You know what I mean? Your heart's broken, it's torn in two. So learning to love yourself, yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to piggyback on what Marielle said about like having like a resentment towards somebody. You know, if you do have a resentment towards someone, definitely you do have a part, whether you're being inconsiderate or selfish or whatnot. And you got to really reflect and put a mirror up to yourself so you can learn how to forgive that person by knowing what part you had in that particular relationship or resentment.
And also forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Don't forget
to learn how to forgive yourself for sure.
Because I mean, if you know why a person broke up with you and you realize like that was bad and I wish I didn't do that, well, unfortunately you can't take it back, and you can't force someone to forgive you. That is something that they give to you as a gift, is forgiveness. But what you can do is address your own actions and learn from it, and then forgive yourself. If
you want to be really nice about it, like crazy nice about it, maybe they're better off without you.
Hell yeah.
Sometimes, you know, sometimes you realize like, I was kind of a shitty person, and you're right. Like, you're right for leaving me. And you know what? Sometimes we just have to cut our losses.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can relate and I can agree to everything that you guys all said, because so I was in a relationship and then I broke up with, or I guess we broke up, and I just remember I was super heartbroken, super heartbroken, and it was just it was a really long process to actually recover from that. And yeah, like,
what an asshole. Like a straight up asshole. I don't know.
I mean, like you know, honestly, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like you go through all sorts of different emotions, and I feel like they're all healthy to kind of express them because it's what you're feeling, and you should just let it out. And so essentially, it was lots of sadness. Then I got angry, and then I got really frustrated, and then I got sad again, and then I started being like, well, you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm tired of feeling sad. I'm tired of feeling angry. At this point, I just want to be like, look, there are parts of me where I feel like maybe I was a terrible girlfriend, and then there are parts where I feel like you were a bad boyfriend. And then moving on towards, it's the reason why we broke up. There's probably a good reason for that, and it's just I learned something new about myself and things like that. And it's just If
you're still thinking about her, you gotta remove yourself from her like completely. Like just like Pacific Ocean like fucking crazy ass shit. Like you just gotta like totally separate yourself. If you're like in like the same like freaking like tri-state area like in your mind, you just gotta like get away. Like you just gotta force yourself away. You gotta move to like Montana and just get the hell out of there. If it's cool, don't worry about it, you know.
And it's like, I think as tempting as it is to wanting to reconnect with your ex, just honestly try not to, because you broke it off once. Take that as a sign to just really get to know yourself and really reflect back on that relationship, whether it was the right person for you, you know? And it's just like, and if maybe a year goes by or maybe 2 years go by, then you can probably revisit and maybe talk with
as long as they're not crazy, then maybe. But if they're crazy, you just gotta Montana.
And I would say, you know, in this day and age of social media, do not feel bad about blocking. Don't. If you have to block people to like have a piece of, have this peace of mind and like heal and better yourself, don't feel like, oh, but if I block them, they're gonna know, they're gonna be, who cares? It's your life, it's not their life. It's your life. Do what you have to. They do not dictate your happiness. You choose.
You don't want to like stalk them or anything. You don't do that. Just don't look at their page anymore. Don't look at their page, dude. Don't.
Just don't.
It's horrible. Don't look at their page.
Leo speaks from personal experience.
If you do, then hate their new boyfriend.
Oh my god.
Mad hate, man. Mad hate.
Emojis.
Poo emoji, angry emoji.
While you're on it, block their new partner too. Just block, go on a blocking spree. Just block them. You know what? Do what you have to. I'm serious though, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because how many times, because everybody is so accessible, you're like, I wonder what they're doing. You're like, damn, they're doing so well.
Just evaporate them. They don't. This world does not have them anymore. It's like gone.
Evaporate them.
It's just gone.
Remember, your world is not just Facebook and Instagram. So you got
it's the people around you.
Just put a little.
Exactly. So we only have a few minutes left, and I just want to end it with this one last question that I have for you guys. So how is it possible that those with terrible actions feel blindly justified that they're coming from good intentions?
Wow, it sounds like someone's talking shit about me. But no, I'm just kidding.
Really?
Denial.
There's some people that are like just crazy toxic, and you just gotta, you just gotta be done with it. Like, is it something like that? Is that what the?
It's just basically something. You know how like when you. I feel like I've fallen into this a lot where I feel like people are saying, oh, I'm just looking out for the best for you, right? But then it's just like what they're doing is that they're just mentally twisting, like we're just like abusing
manipulating
you into thinking that whatever you're doing is wrong, right? And that whatever they're saying is right.
There's a very famous term now, came from a movie, it's called gaslighting, and it's become very popular in like vernacular to talk about gaslighting, where, gaslighting occurs when someone is like, telling or is manipulating your reality, right, by them like twisting things, and so what you perceive as your reality is now altered, and so you might start to feel like things don't make sense. You get flustered, and things kind of build up, and you can feel like you're going crazy because what you perceive is not in line with what you are like told or observing or you're believing. And that is, and I think how do you, like, sometimes you just need to okay, here's the thing. People don't owe an explanation. They don't owe you anything. They don't owe you an explanation. They don't have to tell you why they are good to you, why they are bad to you. They don't owe you anything, right? Nobody has to explain why they cut you off on their 405 freeway. Maybe they had explosive diarrhea. I don't know. Will you ever know? No. But you know what I'm saying?
I don't want to know that.
But that's the thing is nobody owes you this explanation. So you might go on this search of like, why are you such a bad person? They don't ever have to tell you, and maybe they won't even know. And nobody ever owes that to you. And I think people have to remember that, you know?
Yeah, they may truly not think they're doing anything wrong to you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But, you know, some people, honestly, you know, whether they think it's a good thing or a bad thing, or they don't think of it at all, they think that they know who you are as a person, can tell you how you're feeling, can judge your actions. You know what I mean? And if that's not resonating well with you, it's time for you to go. You know, like, it's just like,
bye, Felicia.
Yeah, bounce, you know, because it's not healthy. It's not a healthy thing. And somebody, you know, it's you're a more healthier place to know, hey, you know, that's not how I felt or what I meant. You know what I mean? This person has no right to judge me or to, you know, judge my actions or to think that they know me, you know, in that sense. You know what I mean? Like I gotta seek either help or I gotta just, you know, find a different alternative, a positive alternative than to deal with this particular individual.
And I would say, in addition to people not owing an explanation, is you don't owe other people an explanation. If you feel like you have been hurt and you have tried to address things, or maybe you just feel like, look, this is too much for me to handle, that I can't do it, then move on.
I feel like this is like my theory of like mental health. I think people who suffer from a mental illness are like especially like empathetic, or like extra kind people in most cases, I think. But I think that whoever asked this, or whatever this question is, whoever asked it, whoever wrote it, I think it comes from a place where the person is so kind that they will accept other people's criticisms of them. And I think that you have to highlight the fact that that person is actually a very, very, very nice person. And they should acknowledge that instead of acknowledging whatever else the person is like saying about them. That, you know, people who have mental illnesses, a lot of us, we're like extra sensitive. We're pretty cool people. A lot of us are, not everyone, but I feel like a lot of us who have mental illnesses have this special ability to connect with people in a much more sensitive fashion. And I think that should be highlighted when you talk about someone that's trying to like warp your mind. You have to remember that you have a special superpower, and that is actually even understanding someone who's that much of a jerk towards you.
But I would also say, don't mistake kindness. Like, kindness and insecurity are not equal, right? Like, they're very different things. You can be a very kind person who's very secure, where if someone is doing you wrong, you'll be like, you know what, that is not okay, and you walk away. Right? So they're not equivalent.
I've done it.
Doing it right now. Bye, guys. I'm just kidding.
Well, thank you guys for all your input for today. I'm pretty sure, so I've been reading kind of the comments, and some people are saying, yeah, this has really helped me a lot. I'm probably going to be opening up more. So we're actually glad to hear that, guys. Thank you. So stay tuned. We're actually going to be having these live streams bi-monthly, which is it's going to be happening twice a week. So we're not going to have one next Thursday, but we're going to have one the Thursday after that, which is probably sometime in April. I don't remember the April 11th is the next live stream, guys. Yeah, so stay tuned. It will be at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Yeah, that's
I believe we're also posting the recording of this video to YouTube, Facebook, to Facebook and YouTube. So if you are not able to tune in, you can still find the recording on Facebook and YouTube.
And if someone likes it, share it.
Yeah.
If you like it,
share it. It's not a secret.
And then be sure to just send us questions or any concerns that you guys have, and we'll be sure to discuss them in our next live stream. Yeah. Huh? What? I don't know what it is, but anyways, thank you guys so much.